and thanks for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadia Advocate. Every Monday through Friday between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., we like to bring you the news as reported by the Advocate and the staff of the Acadiana Advocate who cover Louisiana and Lafayette, the Acadiana region. And we like to bring you their printed stories in audio format so that you can have another way to take in the news. You can always, of course, read the news at theadvocate.com. You can find the news there, or just type the Acadiana Advocate into your favorite search engine. You can find more info about AOC at aocinc.org, including finding out how you can be one of our wonderful volunteer newsreaders. Most mornings we're joined here by volunteer newsreaders. This morning we're hoping to be joined by someone who listeners will be familiar with, Mr. Bruce Cohen, and he is hoping to join us at the midway point through the show, so we are ready to have him. In the meantime, you're stuck with me, Matt Roberts of AOC Community Media. All right, so let's just get right into our headlines this morning. Our number one story is Lost in the Mix. Louisiana's $2.4 billion seafood industry is often left out of economic development efforts, a study finds. This is by Adam Daigle. He's the Acadiana business editor for The Advocate. Louisiana is the second largest distributor of seafood by volume in the United States, but is often overlooked when it comes to economic development initiatives and faces significant challenges, a University of Louisiana at Lafayette study found. Only Alaska distributes more seafood than Louisiana, with its $2.4 billion economic impact, but the industry is challenged by foreign imports, a lack of coordination among suppliers with state officials, environmental disruptions, and other issues. The study of the state's 10 coastal parishes was led by Jeff Stewart with UL's Moody College of Business. In the Meridian Institute, LSU Ag Center, and the Louisiana Sea Grant. It's the final product of a three-phase research effort from the agencies to formulate economic development strategy for those in the industry. The U.S. is the world's largest importer by value during a time of skyrocketing consumer demand, the report says. The challenge is to bring together the industry, which has several parts and is also made up of many small suppliers and processors. Despite the challenges, seafood remains an identifying brand for Louisiana, Stewart said Thursday, and the people in the industry remain resilient. On the strength side, it can't be mentioned enough that the cultural significance of this industry, Stewart said. Seafood is a big attraction. The industry gets leverage, but the industry doesn't necessarily get the attention that it necessarily deserves to expand, he said. Louisiana's contribution to the world seafood market was well ahead of the other 48 continental states in 2018. Last year, the state contributed 6.4 million pounds of oysters. That's $7.10 per pound. 81 million pounds of shrimp. That's $1.44 per pound. And 19.5 million pounds of finfish. At $1.03 per pound, and over 35 million pounds of crabs at $1.39 per pound. Those resources are renewable, noted Mitch Jurczyk, chairman of the Louisiana Oyster Task Force and third-generation oyster farmer from Plaquemine Parish. But the challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic and rising water levels this year from the hurricane season, creates a new challenges. His organization is working on a plan to collaborate with others to be more of a unifying voice, he noted. What's happening is, especially in the oyster industry, we're losing sight of what we need to do, Jurczyk said. Some of our state agencies are starting to focus on other things. We're getting lost in the mix a little bit. As important as we are, we're having a lot of issues. We're having to prove ourselves time and time again. We feel like we're not being heard as loudly as we need to be, he said. One of the study's 3 goals was for economic development agencies to proactively engage with the seafood industry to access needed capital. In Jefferson Parish, officials with the Jefferson Parish Economic Development Commission are in the final stages of setting up a fisherman fund. President and CEO Jerry Bologna said, "The industry also needs to participate in the local, state, and federal issues that are critical to its future. Another goal is to create venues to develop and implement shared strategies to adapt for changes in the future. The industry," Stewart noted, "is made up of so many small suppliers and not a large company that would be more identifiable. We have to figure out how we bring those together to create a unified voice of what's going on in the industry," Stewart said. "We've got $2.4 billion a year on the backs of a lot of small businesses. We do have a lot of small businesses that could really start to move and add 1 or 2 jobs. But we need an entry point into the state. We need a place where the seafood industry knows they're represented." Other goals include to leverage the state's culture and stories of the businesses, improve infrastructure, resilience against severe weather, improve transportation and distribution networks, develop a diverse and stable workforce, and stimulate innovation by developing new markets and technologies for Louisiana seafood. "A lot of people benefit from what we do," Jurczyk said. "We need to protect our state's most valuable resource. We've seen what's happened with the oil and gas. It's declining now. It's not a renewable resource. Seafood is a renewable resource, especially in South Louisiana," he said. All right. And so our next story up this morning, Feds investigating Louisiana inmate release dates, by Jacqueline DeRobertis, staff writer for The Advocate. The U.S. Department of Justice has launched a statewide civil investigation into Louisiana's inmate release practices, the agency announced Thursday. Investigators will review the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections to make sure it's releasing inmates on time, including those housed in both state and local facilities. The Civil Rights Division Special Litigation Section will conduct the investigation with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern, Middle, and Western Districts of Louisiana. The department has not reached any conclusions regarding the allegations in this matter, a Department of Justice statement said. Various law offices and the MacArthur Justice Center have filed a series of lawsuits in recent years alleging thousands of inmates in Louisiana are detained past their release dates each year. They argue this costs the state millions of dollars in housing. The Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections looks forward to fully cooperating with the U.S. Department of Justice, said Ken Pastoric, spokesperson for the State Department. The DOC takes this very seriously and will assist in whatever way necessary in this investigation, he said. A state legislative audit report released in October 2019 said Louisiana's prisons failed to properly track inmate release dates. Auditors found an inadequate review process of sentencing calculations that they said has led to errors determining inmates' credit for good behavior, parole eligibility, and rehabilitation programs credits all factors in deciding these dates. A similar state audit in 2017 echoed these concerns and criticized the department's lack of consistent policies for its release date calculations. Court filings released this year revealed that Corrections Department officials knew as early as 2012 that the system for calculating these dates is flawed and has led to people being incarcerated for longer than they should. At the time, civil rights attorneys who represent clients who said they were over-detained estimated that Louisiana inmates have been held past their release dates for a collective total of more than 3,000 years since 2012, costing the state millions. State Corrections Secretary Jimmy LeBlanc acknowledged in May 2019 deposition, filed into court record in February, that delayed and inaccurate sentence computations were a big problem for the department. "It's not that we're ignoring the problem," LeBlanc said during the deposition. "We're fighting every avenue to fix this, and we just run into walls." The time calculation process, which LeBlanc likened to herding cats, also involves an antiquated system for transferring paperwork from one agency to another. often requiring records to be physically driven across the state for hand delivery, and many of Louisiana's inmates are housed in local jails in addition to state prisons, which means state corrections officials must rely on parish-by-parish cooperation to gather the necessary paperwork. Changes to state sentencing laws further complicate things for the Corrections Department employees charged with processing an estimated 60,000 time computations each calendar year. William Most, an attorney representing various clients filing lawsuits with over-detention claims, said in a statement Thursday that his team welcomes the involvement of the Department of Justice. Louisiana's government must end its illegal, unjust, and expensive practice of holding thousands of people for weeks or months past the end of their sentence, he said. All right. And on to a slightly lighter story. This Friday, Moncus Park Treehouse design is released by Claire Taylor, a staff writer for The Advocate. A rendering of a treehouse designed by Pete Nelson of Animal Planet's Treehouse Masters for Lafayette's Moncus Park was released this week. Elizabeth E.B. Brooks, executive director of Lafayette Central Park, Inc. and Moncus Park, said the organization applied to be on Treehouse Masters, but the show ended in September 2018. Afterward, Nelson started taking on projects of his own and selected Moncus Park Treehouse. He visited the park a few times and has now completed the design. The treehouse is part of a play area centered around a swamp theme, Magic of the Bayou, Brooks said. Wood saved from an old barn that stood on the property, the former University of Louisiana at Lafayette Horse Farm, will be used in the treehouse. A handicap-accessible ramp will lead to the treehouse, Brooks said, making it inclusive to all. Donors can purchase boards for the boardwalk and have them inscribed with names. The play area will include the treehouse and an interactive water feature splash pad. The entire playground will be inclusive, meaning it will serve all ages and abilities and include sensory play, she said. Construction on the second phase of the park is expected to start in January, and it will include the play area and treehouse, a veterans memorial and amphitheater sponsored by First Horizon, formerly Iberia Bank. The Veterans Memorial is being funded by large and small donations, Brooks said. Anyone can purchase pavers for the walkway and inscriptions for the seat wall. Visit give.moncuspark.org/GE/Veterans Memorial for more information. And if you want to see that in print, you can, of course, go to theadvocate.com. The memorial, Brooks said, is a semicircle design with a walkway running alongside 13 vertical tables that share the history of America's military conflicts. Flagpoles in the center of the tables will include flags representing all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces. A seat wall opposite the vertical tablets will provide a space for rest and reflection, she said, and a lawn in the middle is designed to seat people for events such as Memorial Day remembrances and Flag Day ceremonies. Moncus Park at 2913 Johnson Street in Lafayette is expected to open in late 2021. Lafayette purchased the nearly 100-acre former horse farm in 2012 from the university during the administration of former City Parish President Joey Durrell to prevent commercial development of one of the largest undeveloped properties in the city. Lafayette Central Park, Inc. was created as a nonprofit organization to raise money to design, build, and maintain the park. The park was named Moncus Park in 2016 following a large donation by local philanthropist James Devin Moncus. All right, and we are at the 15-minute or so mark now, so I'll go ahead and read at least a PSA, maybe a couple. Again, you're listening to Local News Live right here on AOC Community Media. All right, so winter comes a little later in Acadiana, but it comes. In fact, we wish that we could launch this appeal on Giving Tuesday. That's Arch of Acadiana. But frankly, it's the first freeze happened last week, and we're currently experiencing cold times. And so with that in mind, due to COVID-19 and concerns for community spread, There's been a dramatic decrease in the available shelter beds. Those beds will remain unavailable through the winter. That means many experiencing homelessness may have no other option than to sleep on the street. Throughout this pandemic, Arch of Acadiana has been able to utilize local hotel and motel rooms as temporary housing solution. From there, case managers help our fellow Acadians transition to permanent housing. They are very proud of their success in keeping those that they serve safe from COVID-19 and on their way to long-term stability. However, the number of homeless is growing and winter is here. They need your help to get our neighbors out of the cold and into warm, safe housing. Can you help today? If you can, go to www.archacadiana, that's ARCHACADIANA.org, archacadiana.org. If you would prefer to give by check, you can mail that to Arch, ARCH, and that's at P.O. Box 3936 in Lafayette, Louisiana 70502. And if you can, give to help someone get out of the cold this season. All right, let's see. Request for mosquito control now available through Lafayette 311 Mosquito Prevention and Safety. Lafayette Consolidated Government is increasing mosquito abatement efforts in the parish. An increase in mosquito activity is a common occurrence following a storm event. Citizens noticing an influx of mosquitoes in their area can now use the Lafayette 311 portal online to request service. All submitted requests are routed directly to Mosquito Control Services, the mosquito control contractor for the parish. And you can, again, find that at the Lafayette 311 portal, which is at, let's see what that link is, 311lafayette.services. Okay, now we'll get back into our news for today. And this is news about the Lafayette Parish School Board. Policy for discipline in virtual settings approved by Kate Gagliano, staff writer. The Lafayette Parish School Board unanimously approved a new district discipline policy tailored to the virtual learning environment Wednesday after prompting from state legislators following a discipline incident involving a 9-year-old student and a BB gun in Jefferson Parish earlier this year. The policy was approved in a 9-0 vote, with other items without discussion by board members and little comment from district discipline committee members during a meeting earlier Wednesday. Steve Fruget, the school system's director of child welfare and attendance, said in Thursday call that the virtual discipline policy will apply when students are in a setting where they're learning through a live video platform or are in virtual meetings with educators or other students, such as when David Thibodeau STEM Magnet Academy in Southside High closed because of large numbers of student quarantines and continued lessons online. Excuse me. Although Lafayette Online Academy students primarily learn through pre-recorded lessons from a digital provider, the virtual discipline rules would apply if they have the video meetings or tutoring sessions with district educators as part of the program, he said. The new discipline policy states students should have their computer cameras on while learning and station themselves in a space that's well lit, quiet, and to the extent possible free of toys, images, messages, personal property, or other items that may distract from teaching and learning or would result in disciplinary action if possessed on a school bus, in a classroom, or on school property. The policy mirrors restrictions on behavior in the physical school setting, including barring discriminatory or antagonistic language, bullying or cyberbullying, sharing assignment answers or cheating, indecent dress or disrobing, lewd acts, handling weapons or facsimile weapons, use of profane language, and criminal activity, including drug possession, amongst others. Conduct that is unacceptable in the physical classroom is, under most circumstances, equally unacceptable in the virtual classroom. While students and parents normally have an expectation of privacy in their home, conduct that occurs in front of a camera and in the view of peers and teachers in the virtual classroom may subject students to disciplinary action, the policy document said. Discipline will follow a progressive scale depending on the severity of the offense, beginning with a verbal warning and a consultation with the student's parents before punishment, if any is handed down, the policy said. The school system was prompted to establish an independent virtual discipline policy to clarify expectations for student conduct in the virtual classroom after the suspension of Kamari Harrison, a fourth grader in Harvey, who was disciplined after he moved a Daisy BB gun out of the way of his younger brother during an online test from his home. The incident gained national attention and attracted scrutiny from state legislators. School officials said the presence of the gun, which was visible to the teacher, violated school rules. Kamari was initially recommended for expulsion, which was later reduced to a 6-day suspension. His family and others argued the punishment was grossly unfair. House Bill 83, dubbed the Kamari-Harrison Act, was unanimously passed by both the State House and Senate in October, expanding disciplinary appeals rights for students and parents. It separately requires school systems to define conduct expectations for the virtual instruction settings. The deadline to approve policy is December 31. Frugier said the district's policy was developed over 2 November committee meetings and combined district suggestions with insights from other child welfare and attendance leaders in the Louisiana Association of Child Welfare and Attendance Personnel. It was also reviewed by the system's attorney. The virtual discipline policy, like other discipline and attendance rules, will be up for revision in the spring, he said. While the school district's policy pulls from in-school standards, it recognizes that context in the at-home environment needs to be weighed in making decisions about discipline. The school board recognizes, however, that virtual learning is a new experience for students and families, and that the context in which student conduct occurs must be taken into account in determining the appropriate penalty, if any, imposed for violations of the Student Code of Conduct in the virtual classroom, the policy document says. Factors considered in discipline decisions include the student's age, whether the conduct was disrupted learning, whether the conduct was violent or threatening, and whether the conduct was illegal, or whether the student received prior warnings or had been disciplined for similar conduct, and whether the conduct interfered with the rights of the teacher or other students. The policy also addresses educators' roles as mandatory reporters and said any behavior, messages, objects, or images that raise concerns over the student's safety and well-being, including the presence of weapons or drugs, may be reported to law enforcement or the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services. All right. Everybody adjusting to the new ways of doing things, but we can do it. We can work together and find a way. Good. All right. Our next story, COVID-19 coronavirus, the latest. Official virus cases soared last month. Local patients may have to seek treatment and care elsewhere. This is by Ken Stickney, a staff writer for The Advocate. Acadia is pressing its capacity for hospitalizing COVID-19 patients, with a boom in new patients since Halloween. Tina Stefanski, Region 4 Administrator for the Louisiana Department of Health, said there were 226 patients in the region hospitalized for COVID-19 on Wednesday. There were 53 hospitalized COVID-19 patients a month ago. She said that the patient count doubled in 2 weeks and then doubled again. Stefanski said people in the region began to let their guard down at Halloween and again at Thanksgiving. She said the positivity rate has climbed to 11% to 13% in the region from up from 5% or 6%. The positivity rate is the percentage of people testing positive for the virus of those who have been tested overall. She said the goal is to keep the positivity rate under 10%. The peak number of COVID-19 case admissions to hospitals was 304 on July 22nd. We cannot sustain that, Stefanski said of the recent steep increase in patients, which has made Acadia comparable to areas like Shreveport, Monroe, and the North Shore. She said the Lafayette area has more hospitalized COVID-19 patients than New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Additional patients here might have to seek treatment and care elsewhere in the state. You might end up in New Orleans, she said, adding there's additional chances of transferring patients out of state for care. Stefanski spoke Thursday over a Zoom call with the Rotary Club of Lafayette. Paul Mulbear, vice president at Ochsner Lafayette General Medical Center, said not only would more cases take up needed hospital bed space, but it would tax the staff power that hospitals have for caring for patients now. As far as importing additional healthcare professionals to help in Acadiana, he said there's no more cavalry to bring in. Stefanski said increases in COVID-19 cases were sharpest amongst those ages 18 to 29, and those 65 and older, she said, should stay put, stay at home, to avoid the higher risk of infection, hospitalization, and death. People can affect the spread of novel coronavirus by taking simple steps, she said. Don't have big parties. Don't rent out big places for families to gather. Stop and look at the greater community good. Stefanski said science is finding out more about how to better combat COVID-19. She said researchers have learned that masks give additional protection to those who wear them as well as protection for others. She also said the needed period for quarantines may be reduced. She was expecting to join a call Thursday afternoon to discuss that possibility. In response to a question, she also acknowledged precautions exercised to protect against COVID-19, wearing masks and social distancing is helping to keep low rates of seasonal flu. All right. And we had a PSA for Arch earlier, and now we get to hear a little bit more about the executive director, Lee Rochelle. So the headline here is Advocate for Homeless People to be Honored at Virtual Event by Adam Daigle, Acadiana Business Editor. Lee Rochelle, Executive Director for the Acadiana Regional Coalition for Homelessness and Housing, will be honored during the United Way of Acadiana's Women Who Mean Business Awards this month. Rochelle is among 10 women who will be recognized during a virtual ceremony on the United Way of Acadiana's virtual Facebook page at 6:30 p.m. Wednesday. Rochelle, who is also chair of Acadiana Housing Alliance, said she believes that housing is a basic human need and that everyone should have access to safe, decent, and affordable housing. At the coalition, she leads a group of community stakeholders working to end homelessness and housing instability in Acadiana, and she is responsible for the monitoring and allocations of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Homeless Assistance Program funds. A Lafayette native, Rochelle is a graduate of University of Louisiana at Lafayette and Union Presbyterian Seminary. In 2005, after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, she co-founded Unites in Prayer and Service, a nonprofit designed to fill gaps in service in Acadiana that offered furniture, housewares, and financial assistance through its Compassion Fund. The group's gift basket ministry was also able to provide 1,000 holiday baskets to many who would not be able to otherwise afford them. Over the past 15 years, Rochelle has worked for a number of local nonprofits, including 232 Help, 211, Catholic Services, The Extra Mile, and Volunteers of America. While at Catholic Services, now Catholic Charities of Acadiana, Rochelle was director of St. Joseph Diner and Stella Maris Hygiene Center and oversaw the expansion of services to include breakfast and lunch. She was the recipient of Our Lady of Lourdes Franciscan Spirit Award in 2011. Rochelle is also a lay pastor for First Presbyterian of Abbeville. And I will just say that Lee is a great person and a good friend. All right. So now we're at about the midway mark. And let's see. Let me read one more story and we'll see if Bruce can join us. And then he can start off with the mid-show entertainment section. Excuse me. All right. Lourdes president to depart job in December. This is a staff report from The Advocate. Our Lady of Lourdes Regional Medical Center President Brian Lee will leave his post in mid-December, according to a statement from Franciscan missionaries of Our Lady Health System. Lee has accepted an executive leadership position with Bon Secours Mercy Health in Virginia. A selection committee that includes several Lafayette leaders will choose a replacement to direct regional operations, according to the statement. Chief Financial Officer Jennifer Clowers will serve as interim market president upon Lee's departure and during the search process. We are extremely grateful for Brian Lee and his servant leadership to further both this hospital and our community, says Brian Hanks, chairman for the hospital's board of directors. We have always seen great promise in him and wish him well. Brian has assembled a tremendous executive team at Our Lady of Lourdes, and we have full confidence in Jennifer Clowers to lead the organization forward as we select a new president. Lee joined the organization almost 4 years ago. Under his leadership, Our Lady of Lourdes expanded its Acadiana footprint with the acquisition of Women's and Children's Hospital, the development of an emergency room in Scott for new Lourdes urgent care locations, and further alignment of Lourdes Heart Hospital. The strategic growth of our Acadiana ministry is particularly notable under Brian's leadership. His thoughtful and collegial style will be missed. Our well wishes and prayers are with him as he makes this career move, said Dr. Richard Vath, Chief Executive Officer of the hospital system. Brian Lee, President of Our Lady of Lourdes, is leaving his post in mid-December, according to a statement from Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady of Health System. All right, so we are at the halfway mark now. I'm going to go ahead and just put a mark here, and then we will go and read the death notifications for today, and then take it to a lighter place with the day in history and the zodiac. And we have a lot of news in here. I don't know if we'll get to it all today, but all right, here we go. So funerals today in the Acadiana area. We have Willie Campbell will be laid to rest at Rose Hill Cemetery, West Main Street in New Iberia at 2 p.m. Ruth Cormier will be at the Immaculate Conception Catholic Church in Washington at 1 p.m. James Duyon Sr., Chapel of Geezy Ferguson Funeral Home, 301 North Avenue F, Crowley, at 2 p.m. Justin LaRive Jr., Beau Prey Memorial Park at 3 p.m. Jane Sandoz at Our Lady Queen of Angels Catholic Church at 10:30 a.m. And then Clyde Taylor at Dry Creek Cemetery at 11 a.m. All right. And today in history. Today is Friday, December 4th, the 339th day of 2020. There are 27 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on December 4, 1783, General George Washington bade farewell to his Continental Army officers at Francais Tavern in New York. On this date in 1942, World War II, U.S. bombers struck the Italian mainland for the first time with a raid on Naples. President Franklin D. Roosevelt ordered the dismantling of the Works Progress Administration, which had been created to provide jobs during the Depression. In 1956, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins gathered for the first and only time for a jam session at Sun Records in Memphis. In 1965, the United States launched Gemini 7 with Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Frank Borman and Navy Commander James A. Lavelle aboard on a 2-week mission. While Gemini 7 was in orbit, its sister ship, Gemini 6A, was launched December 15th on a 1-day mission. The two spacecraft were able to rendezvous within a foot of each other. In 1978, San Francisco got its first female mayor, as city supervisor Dianne Feinstein was named to replace the assassinated George Moscone. In 1980, the bodies of 4 American churchwomen slain in El Salvador 2 days earlier were unearthed. 5 Salvadorian National Guardsmen were later convicted of murdering nuns Ida Ford, Maura Clark, and Dorothy Kazel, and lay worker Jean Donovan. In 1986, both houses of Congress moved to establish special committees to conduct their own investigations of the Iran-Contra affair. In 1991, Associated Press correspondent Terry Anderson, the longest held of the Western hostages in Lebanon, was released after nearly 7 years in captivity. In 2000, a pair of legal setbacks for Al Gore, a Florida state judge, refused to overturn George W. Bush's certified victory in Florida, and the U.S. Supreme Court to set aside a ruling that allowed manual recounts. In 2018, long lines of people wound through the Capitol Rotunda to view the casket of former President George H.W. Bush. Former Senator Bob Dole steadied himself out of his wheelchair to salute his old friend and one-time rival. 10 years ago, Barack Obama praised a newly sealed trade deal with South Korea as a landmark agreement that promised to boost the domestic auto industry and support tens of thousands of American jobs. 5 years ago, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that an outbreak of E. coli linked to the Mexican food chain Chipotle had expanded to 9 states with a total of 52 reported illnesses. 1 year ago, a Navy sailor whose submarine was docked at Pearl Harbor shot 3 civilian shipyard workers, killing 2 of them at the military base in Hawaii before taking his own life. Today's birthdays. Game show host Wink Martindale is 87. Pop singer Freddie Cannon is 84. Actor-producer Max Baer Jr. is 83. Rock musician Bob Mosley of Moby Grape is 78. Singer-musician Chris Hillman is 76. Musician Terry Woods of the Pogues is 73. Rock singer Southside Johnny Lyon is 72. Actor Jeff Bridges is 71. Rock musician Gary Rossington of Leonard Skinner, the Rossington Collins Band, is 69. Jazz singer Cassandra Wilson is 65. Actor Marissa Tomei is 56. Actor-comedian Fred Armisen is 54. Rapper Jay-Z is 51. Actor-model Tyra Banks is 47. Actor Orlando Brown is 33. All right, and no matter when you were born, here is a little entertainment feature for you that, if the shoe fits, I guess wear it. Here's the zodiac for today. Sagittarius. Home improvements will turn out well and set the stage for family fun. Turn uncertainty into confidence and make decisions that will bring you the joy and happiness you deserve. Capricorn. An emotional incident will surface if you are insensitive. Listen to what's being said and be mindful of the way others feel. A change you make will change the way you are treated. Aquarius, you can improve your position, status, and reputation if you take charge and go after your goals. Set up interviews, offer proposals, and use your persuasive charm to capture attention. Pisces, avoid persuasive situations and people. Look out for your interests and be secretive regarding your plans. Someone will offer unreliable information that will cause uncertainty and confusion. Aries, don't stop. Figure out the best way to use your skills, knowledge, and wherewithal to help you bring about the changes that will make you happy. Taurus, you may have a plan in place, but uncertainty will set in if emotional issues prevail. Take care of unfinished business before you move forward. Gemini, you'll have a better chance of getting your way if you are honest about what your feelings and plans, Handle partnership with care and offer a straightforward approach to finding solutions. Cancer, spend more time cleaning up unfinished business and less time letting what's going on around you get you down. Focus on personal gains, a healthy lifestyle, and easing stress. Leo, take the initiative to get things done. Speak up and be heard. A leadership role can be yours. Be creative and respond to opposition with solutions, not with anger. Virgo, be mindful of those you live with, but don't let them get away with something that isn't right. Handle matters diplomatically. A positive change to a meaningful relationship will unfold. Libra, gather facts that will help you make an informed decision. Check with friends, family, and peers, and consider what will serve you best. Welcome a partnership with a like-minded soul. And Scorpio, look for a way to get things done without interference. A unique plan will strike an emotional chord with you and encourage you to do things differently. Verify information before you begin something. And as always, the horoscope is an entertainment feature not based on scientific fact. Alright, let's see if I can find my place where I was in the news from before, and we'll get back to it. Sorry, just looking for it. Like I said, we had quite a bit of news here today. Alright, here we go. So, our next story is shell-shocked. Take a little sip of coffee here. Thanks again for tuning into Local News Live today. Shell-shocked, 30 endangered sea turtles get care in New Orleans by Tristan Barrick, staff writer. Dozens of endangered sea turtles are thawing out and recuperating in New Orleans after the cold of New England nearly killed them. The Audubon Nature Institute's Coastal Wildlife Network is treating 30 exceptionally rare Kemp's Ridley sea turtles for hypothermia, pneumonia, and other ailments brought on by a sudden cold snap and high winds off the Massachusetts coast just before Thanksgiving. The almost lifeless reptiles were rescued from the cold and then survived an unexpectedly long and circuitous plane and van trip to the Audubon Species Survival Center in Algiers. Those that recover will be released into the Gulf of Mexico in coming months. Recuperation is going well for most of the turtles, said Gabriella Harlemert, a Coastal Wildlife Network rehabilitation coordinator. All were in critical condition before they got on the plane, but they've gotten lots and lots and lots of observation and treatment here, she said. Every turtle has their own treatment plan. No two treatments are the same. As of Wednesday, about 2/3 were swimming freely in a 5-foot deep tank, and 9 others were showing signs of pulling through. 3 remained in supercritical condition, Harlemert said. Kemp's Ridleys are considered the world's most endangered sea turtle. Only about 8,000 nesting females are estimated to be alive today due to a host of challenges including habitat loss, overhunting, and frequent drownings in shrimp trawler nets, according to Sea Turtle Conservancy. Although Kemp's Ridley ranges along the eastern Gulf coasts, it nests only on the western Gulf beaches in Mexico and Texas, making the Gulf critical to the species' survival. Every individual is important when their numbers have dwindled as low as they have, Harlemert said. Saving these 30 is huge, she said. Kemp's Ridleys are the smallest sea turtle. Most of the ones at the survival center are about the size of a dinner plate. The smallest is a 2-pounder that could fit in a cereal bowl. They were a few of the hundreds of sea turtles, Kemp's Ridleys, and other threatened species like loggerheads and greens that washed up on the beaches of Cape Cod, Massachusetts after a bout of cold, windy weather last month. Most turtles had already left for warmer climates, but this batch was caught behind the long, hook-shaped peninsula and held there by high winds. When these cold snaps happen, the turtles can go into shock, Harlemert said. Their organs shut down one by one. The number of rescued turtles would have overwhelmed wildlife rescue centers and aquariums in Massachusetts, so dozens were flown to rehab centers along the East Coast and to the New Orleans Survival Center, a facility that's been rehabbing wildlife since the Deepwater Horizon oil disaster in 2010. At least 40 Kemp's Ridleys went to Florida and 15 to Maryland, among other destinations. The turtles' trip wasn't easy. Bad weather forced a New Orleans-bound plane piloted by volunteers to change course and refuel twice, while taking off from an airport in Chattanooga, Tennessee on November 25. The plane's propeller was struck by a rock, knocking it out of commission. It was a bit of a scramble figuring out what to do with these turtles on Thanksgiving Eve, Harlemert said. The Tennessee Aquarium hosted the 30 turtles for the night. On Thanksgiving morning, the pilots loaded the turtles, which made the trip in cardboard banana boxes, into a rented van and then drove them to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where the Coastal Wildlife Network staff met them and rushed the turtles the rest of the way to New Orleans. While most people in America ate turkey and watched football, Coastal Wildlife Network staff spent their Thanksgiving administering emergency medical care to sea turtles. It was all about giving them fluids and antibiotics the first night and then ultrasounds, x-rays, and blood work the next day, Harlemert said. Symptoms of wet, cold breath and rattling lungs indicated nearly all of them had developed pneumonia. One of the biggest challenges was warming the turtles up. The cold-blooded animals have to be eased into higher temperatures, warming no faster than 3 degrees per day. It took a few days before the healthier ones had thawed out enough to swim in the tank. The turtle with the shell fracture is pushing through like a champ. He's one of our best eaters and is very active in the tank, Harlemert said. Staffers have to catch him and force him to rest periodically so his shell can mend, she said. Most of the turtles could be released in a month or two. Some of the more critical patients may need to stay at the center until March. Turtles are fighters, Harlemert said. They don't want to die. They fight with everything to make it, she said. All right. And our next story is Louisiana treasurer hospitalized after testing positive for virus, by Sam Carlin, staff writer. Louisiana Treasurer John Schroeder tested positive for COVID-19 before Thanksgiving and experienced breathing difficulties this week that required him to be admitted to the hospital, making the Republican one of more than 1,300 Louisianians hospitalized with the virus as the state weathers a third surge of the pandemic. The announcement came the same day that Congressman Garrett Graves, a Baton Rouge Republican, said he was quarantining after being exposed to someone, not Schroeder, who tested positive for the virus. Also Thursday, U.S. Representative Mike Johnson of Bossier City revealed he tested positive for the virus weeks ago without announcing it and has since recovered. Schroeder's office said Thursday he tested positive for the virus shortly before Thanksgiving and was hospitalized this week. It was unclear if he was receiving supplemental oxygen or where he was hospitalized. Schroeder, 59, lives in Covington. He is responding well, he is comfortable, and he is texting up a storm, Michelle Milholland, a spokesperson for Schroeder, said in a statement. Because he had to cancel meetings and step away from the Main Street Recovery Program, he wanted to inform the public about his condition. He encourages everyone to protect themselves as best they can from this virus and hopes to be back at the state capitol by the first of the year. Schroeder, a Republican who assumed office in 2017 during a special election and was re-elected last year, oversees the state finances as well as a $275 million grant program for small businesses hit by the pandemic. His office said he is experiencing little discomfort. Milholland said in an email that no other staffers tested positive because of exposure to the treasurer. When cases escalated statewide, we asked as many staff as possible to work from home. She did not respond to a query about how many staffers had to quarantine after being exposed to Schroeder. Schroeder is one of many Louisiana politicians to test positive for the virus, including at least one, a Representative Reggie Bagala, who died from COVID-19. U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy, Senate President Paige Cortez, and other state lawmakers have also contracted the disease, which has killed more than 6,000 Louisianians. Zach Barnett, a spokesperson for Graves, said the congressman has not been around Schroeder and is driving back from Washington, D.C. to Louisiana. Barnett did not respond. Two questions about how Graves intends to drive safely while quarantining. The CDC recommends people who are exposed to the virus stay home and monitor your health for 14 days. The agency came out with new recommendations this week that say people can quarantine for 10 days without experiencing symptoms or 7 days with a negative test result and no symptoms. Schroeder was at a joint budget committee meeting with state lawmakers as recently as November 20th. It was not immediately clear when he tested positive for the virus or whether any staff members were exposed and quarantined. Central Republican State Senator Bodie White, who attended the joint budget meeting as chair of the Senate Finance Committee, said he did not receive word from Schroeder's office that he was exposed to him during the budget meeting. White said he independently received a negative test recently before going on a hunting trip in Mississippi after experiencing symptoms related to a sinus infection. Schroeder spent 9 years in the legislature as a state representative before being elected treasurer, a statewide position succeeding U.S. Senator John Kennedy. He was a businessman from Covington. His hospitalization comes as Louisiana remains firmly in a third surge of coronavirus cases and hospitalizations taking place across the U.S. The White House Coronavirus Task Force this week warned the COVID risk to all Americans is at a historic high. It must be made clear that if you are over 65 or have significant health conditions, you should not enter any indoor public spaces where anyone is unmasked due to the immediate risk to your health. You should have groceries and medications delivered, the report said. All right, so we are coming up to the end of our broadcast. We've got about 6 minutes left for the TV show, so let me see if I can get you all a little bit of sports, because I think we've gotten through most of the news. So we'll get you a little bit of sports for your last story today. All right. So, off quarantine, Cajuns women ready for opener 2 weeks later than planned. UL starts versus North Texas. This is by Kevin Foote, a staff writer for The Advocate. In many ways, UL's women's basketball coach Gary Broadhead felt more prepared for a season opener 2 weeks ago than when his Ragin' Cajuns take on North Texas at 6 p.m. Friday at the Cajun Dome. The Cajuns avoided the coronavirus from July through November. We felt like we were ahead of the game, Broadhead said. Then came a 2-week quarantine for the entire team, ending on Thanksgiving Day. The first practice was, looks like Bruce is joining us now. Hey, Bruce. I'm not hearing you, Bruce, but...
Okay, you can't hear me?
I don't know what's going on, because I can see you. Out of the audience out there may be hearing you, but I cannot hear you. Wait, let me try something here.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
You got me now?
I got you now, yeah.
Oh, great. So where are you at?
I'm at the last 3 minutes of the show.
I figured as much. I just wanted to come in and say thank you for taking over my usual spot and just say good morning to Acadiana. And so where are you at? What story are you on?
I was just reading the off-quarantine Cajuns women ready for opener.
There you go. That's your last story of the morning.
That was the last one, yep.
Yeah. So I'll let you continue. I just wanted to say good morning to you and good morning to everybody out in Acadiana. And I appreciate you taking over. I just got off the call with my doctor, so I appreciate that. And I'll see you on Monday.
Sounds great, buddy. Well, thanks for checking in. Glad to hear from you. Glad you're all right, and have a great weekend.
You too, bud.
All right, bud. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and that was Bruce Cohen just checking in for the news read this morning. He'll be back on Monday. So let's see where we were. Then came a 2-week quarantine ending on Thursday. The first practice back was a bit unconventional. Broadhead pulled out practice plans from 5 years ago after a long Christmas break. My coaches were kind of looking at me funny, he said. I wanted to see how their bodies would respond to getting up and down the floor. I was impressed. Now Broadhead knows any practice is different than a 40-minute game against an opponent. I know they're ready to play, Broadhead said. I think they're a little nervous because they did get a little winded when we did do some full court stuff. They were pretty honest about it and how winded they really were. Then all your nerves are high strung. I think they're going to really be excited. to play against somebody else. The next challenge is handling the backcourt from North Texas, which is 1-1 with a win over Tarleton and a loss to Texas. And you can see you can hear the game on Friday at 6 p.m. North Texas at UL at the Cajun Dome, and you can listen on radio at 14:20 a.m. This has been Local News Live on AOC Community Media. Thanks so much to everybody for checking it out. Have a great day and a great weekend. We will be back with you on Monday.